call this meeting to order. Have the pledge led by Councilman Blake. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brenda, can you call the roll?
Councilman Blaisdell.
Present.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Present.
Councilman Froelich.
Present.
Councilman Isaacson.
President.
Supervisors elect.
Present. Need a motion to accept the June 10th town board meeting minutes as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisors elect.
Yes. Motion to accept the June 24th, 2020 town board meeting minutes as presented. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kerr.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isaacson.
Yes.
Supervisors elect.
Yes. We're a little ahead of schedule, but I need a motion to open the public hearing for the rate hearing and review of the rates charged by and the physical condition of Heritage Springs Sewer Works within the town of Milton.
Okay, hold on, I got to get.
Okay? Announcement? Okay, sorry, all right. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead then since we can't start until 7:35. We're going to move down to the next item on the agenda, which is a motion to approve the extension of the state of emergency declaration to be signed by the supervisor on July 14th, 2020. State of emergency had previously been declared in the town of Milton effective March 16, 2020. That was subsequently extended several times, with the most recent to expire on July 15th, and which pursuant heretofore shall be further extended for another 30 days. The state of emergency has been declared for the entire town of Milton due to the following: outbreak, spread, and resurgence of the COVID-19 virus. In order to protect the town residents, employees, and the public health and safety, emergency action is necessary to help slow and arrest the spread of this virus, including reducing the opportunity for instances in which individuals come in close contact with one another. These situations threaten the public safety. This state of emergency will remain in effect for 30 days from the date hereof, or until rescinded, modified, or extended by a subsequent order or resolution. As the town supervisor of the town of Milton, I, Benny Zlotnick, exercise the authority given me under Section 24 of New York State Executive Law to preserve the public safety and hereby render all required and available assistance vital to the security, well-being, and health of the citizens of this municipality. I hereby direct all departments and agencies of the town of Milton to take whatever steps necessary to protect life and property, the public infrastructure, and provide such emergency assistance deemed necessary and proper by the town board and supervisor. This declaration may be modified, supplemented, and changed by subsequent orders, declarations, and resolutions dated July 14th and signed by myself. So we need a motion to approve that extension.
Make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kirk.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isakson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zalak.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Grab the one.
I grabbed some of them.
Want to take a minute to go get it?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yep. Zoning's not gonna work.
Moving on. July 13th, 2020, dear Dave, I am writing to let you know that I will be resigning from the Highway Department. My last day of employment will be July 23rd, 2020. I will be leaving to take another position. I want to thank you for the opportunities you have given me in the Highway Department and have enjoyed my time here and wish you and the entire department my best. Sincerely, Eric Culver. This was received on July 14th. So we need a motion to approve the resignation of Eric Culver from the Town of Milton Highway Department effective July 23rd, 2020.
I'll make that motion. Just, it's a good example of the industry right now. Eric's actually moving on to a higher paying job, doing the same work. Construction. He said we're losing a good worker.
We have a request that everybody talk louder.
Well, we have the microphones in between us here, so you can pick one up when it's your turn to speak. That would be great.
Who made the motion?
I think
And who seconded?
I'll second. One second.
Okay. Any discussion? Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kirk.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
yes.
Councilman Isakson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zalak.
Yes.
All right. Now.
Should be.
Please take notice that the Town Board of the Town of Milton will conduct a public hearing on July 22nd, 2020 at 7:35 p.m. on the rate hearing and review of the rates charged by and the physical condition of Heritage Springs Sewer Works, Inc. within the Town of Milton. Said public hearing will be held at 310 North Line Road, Ballston Spa, New York, and by Zoom at, and then all the Zoom information.
Okay, with that said, we will open the public hearing.
Can I speak shortly, please? I just wanted to take a moment to disclose, in an effort to be open and transparent, I am a Heritage Springs Waterworks customer for water, not sewer. With that being said, I'm confident that I can move forward with hearing both sides as well as from members of the public, unbiased, hearing all opinions and rendering a fair opinion. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone from Heritage like to speak?
so don't pass out.
Yeah, sure enough.
On the mic. I'm sorry, which one is it? That better?
Can you hear me? Should I just speak loud at work?
We'll have to give him, it was working this afternoon, we'll have to give him another one. Hang on, don't. Yeah, no, that won't reach. So I bought the longer cord. This one. Try it again, Bill. There you go.
Testing, testing.
Thanks, Bill.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Walsh. I'm from the law firm of Walsh & Walsh LLP in Saratoga Springs. I am the counsel for Heritage Springs Sewer Works. We have handed up a statement from Heritage Springs. It's 2 pages long. I would prefer not to read it, but we would ask that it be included in the record if that is acceptable to the board. That's a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And in addition to that, we have submitted an update report from Ken Claflin, who had done the financial analysis that was included in the Robinson report back in 2010. What Heritage Springs did in anticipation of trying to provide as much useful information as it could to the town and the public, it requested that Mr. Claflin update his report from 2010 through 2019, and similarly asked Gary Robinson to update his physical and financial inspection report from 2010 up to date. Mr. Claflin's report is ready for you tonight. Mr. Robinson's report has been in the works, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. It's not yet ready, according to Mr. Robinson. We anticipate that will be delivered in the next week to 2 weeks maximum. And we ask that both of those documents be included in the record of the public hearing and the rate hearing and the review process. Briefly, the statement that Heritage Springs has put forth in writing covers several points. First and foremost, and most significantly, as many of you know, there was a multi-year litigation involving the sewer company and Thomas and Bruce Bogosian and one or more of their related entities. The Bogosians, through one of their entities, had also sued the town, essentially attacking Resolution 5/2011, which had incorporated by reference the entire Robinson report in that resolution. And that report was probably 900 pages with all the appendices on it. So by Resolution 5/2011, the town board essentially adopted and accepted all of the findings and conclusions of the Robinson report, which also included the Claflin report. Key to one of the things that was decided by the town board in 2011 was, in order to keep on top of things, there was imposed an annual report requirement on Heritage, where once a year, roughly May 15th of every year for the prior fiscal year, they submitted a report, the contents of which were laid out both in the 5/2011 resolution with some modifications in 4/2012 resolution. And the company has submitted those reports each and every year as required. Those reports contain fundamentally all of the significant and material data and information with respect to the sewer company operations, the rates, its income, and expenses, any unusual events occurring in the system, year by year by year. Those have been submitted, and for the most part, they apparently have been accepted without question because essentially Heritage Springs has not received any questions about those annual reports. Obviously, they're there, and Heritage Springs would be happy as part of this hearing or at any other occasion, if there are questions about any of those reports or the new updating reports from Robinson and Claflin that are being submitted, the company will answer those questions thoroughly and completely. But we think for purposes of this hearing, and in light of the resolutions from 2011 and 2012, really nothing has changed. The finances of the company are such that, as had been concluded in the 2011 resolution in the Robinson report, as required by the Transportation Corporations Law, Section 121, the rates have to be agreed upon by the municipality and the company, and they have to be fair, reasonable, and adequate. And the 2010 Robinson and Claflin reports basically said, yes, they are fair. In fact, they're probably too fair. And they're reasonable, but they are inadequate to properly fund the operations of the sewer company, not only with respect to its operation and maintenance costs, but also to the allowed 7% return on an annual basis, which Mr. Claflin's updating report clarifies, is in fact an annual basis. It's not a one-time cumulative 7% over 32 years return. So we think you'll find those updating reports enlightening, especially when read together with the original Robinson report and the town's resolutions, and of course the all-important stipulation settlement that was entered into between Heritage Springs, the Goshians, and their related entities, and the town. And that agreement was so ordered by the Supreme Court and can be enforced as such by the court on application of the party. So there's a very long and complex and complicated background, but it is important that the town not only remember, but review thoroughly those background documents. They are essential, and they are directly related to this review and rate hearing, which you are conducting in accordance with the Transportation Corporation Law, Section 121. Our purpose here is to primarily listen tonight. This is an opportunity for the public to comment. We will take copious notes. We are not planning to try to answer any questions verbally because it might be impossible to do so, given the record of the prior reports and the Claflin updating report, which you will have tonight, but obviously no one has had a chance to review it. But we will certainly, to the extent we're asked to do so, respond thoroughly in writing with any appropriate backup documentation or citations to the existing record by way of the Robinson 2010 report or any of the updating reports or any of the annual reports. One thing with respect to this particular review, the resolution that was passed under the prior administration, I believe, specifically mentioned the connection charge, which was established at $2,000 per equivalent connection unit, or ERU, depending on the terminology. We're now following sewer district's terminology pursuant to the 2012 stipulation settlement. But the one thing that bears repeating here is, per the appellate division decision in the earlier litigation between the sewer company and the Bogosians, that connection fee is in fact a rate or part of the rate structure, and as such has to be fair, reasonable, and adequate. So if you have to look at both components here, the rate charged to customers as well as the connection fee. We've always tried to be very fair on the connection fees. The intent was to use those primarily for the company to recoup its original capital investment figures, which were conservatively established by the 2011 resolution and by the Robinson report. If that gets monkeyed with, then unfortunately we're back into a situation where not only the connection fee would have to be reviewed again or adjusted appropriately, but possibly the customer rates as well. It all goes to the same pot, to pay the same expenses, and for the shareholders of Heritage to recoup their initial capital investment, which has taken them a long, long time to do. Okay, so I think I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you very much. I'll put my mask back on.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm going to open up the floor now to the public. I will look on my screen here to see if anybody has their hand up, and apparently one person does. Under the rules that we have for public hearing, just so everyone is aware, if we're going to extend our time limit to 5 minutes per person tonight, it is one person per family or representative. If you don't have enough time to get that in, then we will leave open. You have 10 days to submit your questions or comments in writing. You can address that to the town clerk, and she will forward those on to the board. And with that, I will open up the floor to anybody who wishes to speak.
Good evening, folks. My name is John Privatera. I am a partner at Whiteman, Osterman & Hanna in Albany. I am counsel to Thomas and Bruce Bogosian and their related entities. We have a presentation tonight that will be in 4 rounds, if you would tolerate Tom and Bruce both speaking. We did not know about that rule that you just announced. We did not know that there would be a 5-minute limit. I must say, when the Public Service Commission has a rate hearing, witnesses are sworn, and no limit. There's no limit on reasonable testimony, although the judge can limit things that go on and on. So we would like the opportunity to cover that tonight. I'm going to speak first and just introduce folks. One of the people that is going to speak tonight is Alexander Kuchis. He is a certified public accountant. He has conducted an accounting procedure on the books and records of Heritage Springs Sewer Works, and he has a report to present and to summarize. After that, I think Tom would like to speak, and Bruce, if you would tolerate it. And then I have a statement to make after that. Mr. Kuchis.
I'm going to hand out what he's going to talk about. That way you will have the information.
Spell your last name for me, please.
Kuchis.
Thank you.
Before you begin, sir, I'd like to say this is not a new rule that we've sprung up on tonight. We've had these time limits and procedures for many years, going back to when I was a member of the planning board. So this shouldn't be a big surprise or a shock to anyone tonight. But
yes, I served on my local town planning board and town council. I was very aware of those limitations. Basically, what what Tom handed out was a summary of the procedures report that is attached, along with basically my credentials, education experience, etc. My name is Alexander S. Kuchitz. I am a licensed certified public accountant and previously a certified valuation analyst. I have been practicing professional for over 28 years. It's actually more like 35. I have a statement tonight regarding the books and records of Heritage Springs Sewer Works, Inc. My resume is attached for your information. My testimony this evening is based upon my professional work in preparing the report on review and analysis of documents provided regarding Heritage. I prepared my work and completed it on January 5th, 2011. My report and analysis are also attached. I examined over 20 years of Heritage tax returns and accounting information. I examined hundreds of pages of accounting files, bridging almost 2 decades. I studied the sworn testimony of Gordon Nicholson, one of the principals of Heritage. Based upon my extensive professional analysis of this financial information, I have come to 4 conclusions regarding the financials of Heritage. Number 1, Heritage has no infrastructure investment to recover. I have concluded that Heritage has no assets other than a small amount of cash. This information, gathered from sworn tax returns and other financial information, establishes without a doubt that Heritage has no investment whatsoever in the sewer infrastructure that is operated by the company. This also means that Heritage has no investment to recover and thus no rationale in support of the rates they charge sewer users in the community. In addition to the proven fact that Heritage has no investment to recover, the company has made distributions to its shareholders totaling $369,954 over the years that I examined. Other payments to shareholders classified as various other types of payments, such as management fees, totaled $108,263. Number 2, Heritage has been self-dealing in the expenses of operating the Heritage system. As evidence that Heritage generates a lot of cash for its shareholders, I examined the relationship between Heritage Springs Sewer Works, Inc. and Adirondack Sewer and Water Management, Inc., an environmental design partnership, wherein Heritage paid these entities vast sums of money. Gordon Nicholson, a shareholder in Heritage, provided sworn testimony that Adirondack Sewer and Water Management, Inc., an environmental design partnership, are all related entities with common shareholders operating out of the same office with the same office support personnel. Mr. Nicholson also testified that none of the arrangements with these 2 closely held and related entities were ever put out to a competitive bid process. He also testified that the rates charged to Heritage by these 2 related entities were determined by Mr. Nicholson himself, along with other shareholders of Heritage. From an accounting perspective, the transactions between Heritage and Adirondack, as well as the transactions between Heritage and environmental design, were not arm's length transactions. Heritage has no financial records that justify the reasonableness of the large payments to Adirondack or environmental design. Therefore, the appropriateness and fairness of the charges cannot be determined. This is important because payments to Adirondack for the years 1989 through August 31st, 2010 totaled $1,317,000 and change. This amount does not include payments which may have been paid during the years 1988, 1992, and 1997, as no records for those years were provided to me. In addition, payments to environmental for the years 89 through August 31st, 2010 totaled $519,000 and change. This amount does not include amounts that may have been paid during 1988, as no records were provided to determine such amounts. Number 3, Heritage has generated vast gross revenue by charging unregulated connection fees. Heritage generates revenue by charging 2 rates, annual fees and connection charges. I examined the Heritage books and records relating to connection charges and determined that based upon the varied connection contracts examined by me, the total connection charge revenue was at least $1.2 million for the period 1989 through 2006. And finally, number 4, sewer infrastructure costs by entities or individuals other than Heritage Springs Sewer Works cannot be claimed by Heritage. From an accounting and tax perspective, transactions made by a shareholder individually are not the corporation's investments unless recorded properly and supported by appropriate documents. I found no such records. In addition, tax returns are sworn statements subject to severe penalties for any misrepresentations. Therefore, the tax returns of Heritage consistently showing no investment and any sewer infrastructure can be relied upon. In conclusion, based upon the financial information provided and examined, Heritage Springs Sewer Works, Inc. has no investment in any infrastructure. Alex Kuchas, CPA, July 22nd, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tom or Bruce? However walk you want.
My brother will be handing out binders that contain a ton of information, a lot of which has been obtained from the public record, a lot of which has been given to this board, previous boards on numerous occasions, and it's very difficult. As I spoke to the supervisor on the phone the other day, it's very difficult to provide a cohesive presentation in 180 seconds or 300 seconds. This is 30 years of failing to look at the record by the town. Mr. Walsh was up here and he spoke about two rates, the connection rate as well as the annual service charge rate. And we are specifically tonight focusing on the connection, which through litigation was determined to be a rate and had to be published by the town. The situation is in its simplest form. Heritage Springs Sewer Works, Inc., the entity, has zero investment in infrastructure in the town of Milton. You heard Mr. Walsh refer to the shareholders. Yes, shareholders did do infrastructure improvements. Principals of Heritage Springs Sewer Works did do infrastructure improvements, but they did them for private real estate deals, their own deals. Heritage Springs Sewer Works, Inc. has not invested $1 in infrastructure in the town of Milton. And what I'm presenting has been known to the public. I've obtained it through FOIL, so it's not information that should be surprising. It's important to provide background information. Several times we've approached the town and said, hey, Heritage doesn't have any investment, and what I hear is, well, somebody built it. Yes, they did. And those people that built it ended up being basically two entities, Jim Mitchell and his associates who built it for private real estate deals, and also every other developer who built infrastructure in the town of Milton, including ourselves, who were required by contract to put that infrastructure in the ground and give it to Heritage at no cost, including early contracts that Heritage had with folks that required them to lease that infrastructure to Heritage for $1 for a period of 6 years or until such time as Saratoga County Sewer District took that infrastructure. Now you may be asking why have we waited so long to tell this story? Well, we were involved in litigation, as Mr. Walsh said, and part of that litigation settlement required us to keep silent if the sewer company asked for a rate increase back in 2012 of less than 20%. And even though they testified at the time, Mr. McNamara, I believe, made the presentation, and they're asking for about 18%, they said that it wouldn't cover their expenses. Well, the reason they didn't ask for the increase to cover their expenses is because we'd have been able to present, because that increase would have been greater than 20%. I have a long memory, and so does Mr. Olenek here in town. And at the 2012 rate hearing, there was a little back and forth because the stenographer kept the record well, and I do go back and read those interesting things. And Mr. McNamara made the presentation that Mr. Mitchell was not the town engineer in 1987, and Mr. Olenek got up and said, yes, he was. I've got a good memory. Well, Mr. Olenek, you're absolutely right, because in that big binder, you're going to see exhibits. A is the town board minutes from January 7th, the organizational meeting that you have every year. At that meeting, Mr. Mitchell was appointed the town engineer and Mr. LeCain was appointed the town attorney. You're also going to see in that binder town board minutes from June 25th of 1986, town board minutes from June 17th of 1987. You're also going to see all of the sewer contracts that Heritage has ever entered into, which required the sewer infrastructure to be built and given to Heritage at no cost. You're also going to see infrastructure transfer records. Those are the records from where the developer, after they built it, was required to turn that infrastructure over to Heritage at no cost. Interesting in that transfer is one particular bill of sale from Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Nicholson, where they're giving sewer infrastructure to Heritage Spring Sewer Works. Well, if you stop and think a minute, if Heritage Spring Sewer Works built that infrastructure, why would they need to give it to that? Well, because they built it as private individuals in real estate deals. The first real estate deal that they did was for the Deer Run development, and you all know where that is. The second real estate deal they did was the Ross Estates. In Deer Run, and I have a chart in the back of it, Exhibit G, which is going to be the flow chart. I have a big chart I can bring up here. And you have a small version of it in your binder. What it does is it shows you, because what we did is we knew where Mr. Mitchell had made the investment, because in litigation we had EBTs, examinations before trial, and under oath we examined Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Nicholson and several other people, and they testified that they built the backbone. They built that line for Deer Run. They built the line for Ross Estates. Yes, they did. They did it as private individuals. They bought land. They amalgamated it. They got it approved. The Deer Run development was only approved for a 208 or 210 townhouse project because the requirement by the town was that public water and public sewer be to and for that development in order to get that density. Well, they did a deal, and in that deal they sold the property and went under contract to Donnie LeDuc, and they sold that property for $950,000. Well, part of that deal required that they have sewer in the ground, but there was no sewer. They couldn't connect to Saratoga because there was issues with infiltration in Saratoga. So they ended up having to run all the way down Rollins Street to North Line Road and put in a considerable amount of infrastructure. Now, Mr. Craig has said, well, we got Mr. Lang's testimony. Mr. Lang said he did it. Well, I have Mr. Lang's testimony also. Mr. Lang said on, no less than 20 different occasions, he built that line in 1986. 1986 in my books was before 1987. So there's no way it could have possibly been constructed for that. Now, one of the most difficult things that we've dealt with in 20 years is the formation of the company and how it came about and how egregious the situation was when it came about. The minutes from June 17th of 1987, there was a motion by Westfall, seconded by Fragamini and Burgess, hereby consent to the formation of Heritage Springs Sewer Works under provisions of Article 1 and 10 of Transportation Corporation Law of the State of New York for the purpose of supplying sewer to the Deer Run Planned Development District of approximately 40 acres, located in the town of Milton, Saratoga County, New York, all pursuant to an application containing the required engineering plan for the proposed sewer system submitted to the appropriate municipalities 10 days prior to the granting of this consent, and the town board of the town of Milton, Saratoga County, New York, further consents to the filing of the annexed certificates of incorporation of Heritage Springs Sewer Works and authorizes the town supervisor, that'd be Mr. Treble, to sign the consent subject to the approval of the town attorney and the town engineer. 1987. When you got a minute and go home tonight, you look at the minutes from June 7th, 1987, and you're going to find that Mr. Mitchell was the town engineer and Mr. LeCain was the town attorney. And you know what they said? It would be a really good idea to form the companies, and they're going to own 50% of the new companies. And from that egregious conflict of interest is how this monopoly was born. Now, Why are we talking about sewer and we're not talking about water? Well, water is handled by the Public Service Commission, and in the sewer situation, Heritage Springs falls under Transportation Corporation Law, which you are the local governing body and you are the controlling authority. So, two entities, who built the system? Well, as I said before, there's Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Nicholson, Mr. East, Mr. Rice, and they're shareholders, the principals. They built it. You're absolutely right. Heritage Springs Sewer Works, Inc., you need to make that distinction, did not build anything. And then the other entities that built infrastructure was all the rest of the developers, whether it be Tom Ferrone, Goshen Brothers, Tom DeVino, Kurt Kolakowski, Geyser Road Car Wash, Killian, you name it. All these other developers built this infrastructure and gave it to Heritage.
2 minutes, Mr. Bernard. 2 minutes, please.
2 minutes? Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else the town could do to hamstring the people presenting it, but you're really doing a really good job, and thank you very much. How do we know how Mr. Mitchell bought it, or in fact, whether Mr. Mitchell bought property, and if so, how much did he sell it for? What do you think? We're just looking crystal balls? Well, we don't. How we know that is because we did a property transaction search, and we pulled the county records. And on the county records, and they're going to be in that binder also, are all the property transactions where Mitchell bought property from Bargo, bought property from Doolin, bought property from Mrs. Wheeler, and owned property himself. He amalgamated property, and he came up with the Deer Run development, and he got the density because of public water and sewer. And then he bought other property that was for Ross Estates, and then he bought other property involving where Winter Circle is. And how do we know how much it was sold for? Well, they have a neat little thing on there called a deed transfer tax. And that's a per thousand charge. That's a factor of a per thousand charge. So if you just simply do the math, and you figure out what they paid in the transfer tax, then you know what the property was sold for or purchased for. So it's very simple to determine that. This board made a very, very bad decision and an erroneous decision based on Robinson and Claflin's haphazard report. You guys, after Mr. Mitchell, and I don't mean to steal others' thunder, after Mr. Mitchell, the day after this board in 2008, August 27th in 2008, passed a resolution to audit the sewer company. The following day, Mr. Mitchell, who sits back there, wrote the following, and I'm sure Mr. Privatera, my brother, is going to mention it. We don't have any investment. We're not entitled to a return on investment. If we'd have known that we couldn't charge what we wanted to charge for connection, we would only extended the sewer to our own projects. Yet you guys turned around and certified erroneously that they did have $1.1 million in the ground, and they're entitled to a 70% annuity for the rest of their lives. I'll forego with the chart for now, but the official records and evidence presented in these exhibits that you have in front of you corroborate the accuracy and conclusions of Mr. Kuch's testimony. And according to the audit of the Heritage financial records, Heritage Springs Sewer Works, Inc. has no investment, and that investment is what you base your connection rate on. What you said repeatedly from Robinson and Claflin, that they need to get their investment back. They need to get paid back their $1 million that they put in the ground. Heritage has no investment in the sewer system, and thus no investment recovered from town residents. It's time for public ownership of the town's sewer system. I ask you to do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, this is John Privatera again. Tonight you have a tremendous opportunity to act in accordance with your legal powers and serve the public interest of this community that is paying double rates, paying sewer rates to Heritage and paying sewer rates to Saratoga County. putting this town in an unfair position. You can serve the public interest with a stroke of a pen by making Heritage Springs Sewer Works system publicly owned. You have the power to do that under Section 120 of the Transportation Corporation Law, and it specifically states that if you approve public ownership, it is then up to the Saratoga County Sewer District to take the ball and run with it, and if the system has any value whatsoever, the county pays for it. However, it also says in the law, under Section 120, that no sewer company can depreciate their assets for more than 30 years. This company's been around for 33 years. So, consistent with what Mr. Kuchis said, and the law under Section 120, if you, with the stroke of a pen, pass a resolution saying that Saratoga County should take this system and relieve this town of that double taxation or double utility rates, the county won't have to pay a dime for it. Because as a matter of law, you can't depreciate for more than 30 years under Section 120. That puts you out of the business of regulating this company, out of this difficult position of having to regulate them and do one of these rate hearings every 5 years, and it's in the public record, in the public interest. And on this record, there's nothing else to do that's fair and reasonable. I agree with Mr. Walsh's quote of the law, but no, not a dime is fair or reasonable under these circumstances. So there are 4 things that you might consider in making this decision. First, the question is, we don't need a Robinson report. Mr. Walsh referred to the court order. I will tell you, and my statement that's been handed to you, Mr. Walsh is right that there's a court order in place with respect to this system. That court order demands that the Heritage system maintain itself in good repair and ready for public ownership and operation. You don't need a Robinson report. They have to comply with the order, as Mr. Walsh said. And so that court order is enforceable, as Mr. Walsh said. So we know it's ready for the county to take it over pursuant to a court order. Next, the depreciated value of the Heritage system is indeed 0. If you look at Exhibit B to what I just handed up there, it's the 2010 tax return. You will find nothing being depreciated because they don't own anything. They don't have an investment. Every developer put the pipe in the ground, gave them title to the pipe for $1. That's in the binder that you have. And so they have nothing to depreciate. That's why they sent an email in 2008 saying, we don't have anything to depreciate and we're not depreciating. That's the truth, not the basis of the 2012 rate structure that was passed. And that email is Exhibit C to what I just provided you, in which Mr. Mitchell states that he's not taking any depreciation and he's not entitled to. Totally consistent with Mr. Kuchis' forensic accounting findings. Next, if you think about the public interest here, the well-established self-dealing by Heritage makes it impossible to set fair and reasonable sewer rates based on the expenses of Heritage. Mr. Kuchis said that since it's not an arm's length transaction, you can't tell. When Heritage says, we have to charge everybody in this town $240 a year on top of what you pay Saratoga County just to be connected. You can't tell that that's a fair rate structure because they're charging themselves to maintain it. That's well documented in Mr. Kuchis' report. So you don't have any basis upon which to set a fair and reasonable rate. The only fair thing to do is to give it to the county. And the TCL, the Transportation Corporation Law, contemplates this. And the town and the county have always expected that the Heritage system to be taken over by the county. When it was formed in '87, they said they would turn it over to the sewer district after it was owned by Heritage, quote, for a few years to recoup some construction costs. That's the minutes of the Saratoga County proceedings, Exhibit D to what I just gave you. And then in 2003, they said, we need a few more years to depreciate this. 6 more years to recoup our investment. That expired in 2009. And the minutes of that proceeding is Exhibit E. So they've been telling Saratoga County that it's going to be publicly owned time and time again until they realized that all they had to do was hum along here and keep charging double rates to this community, putting this town at a disadvantage with neighboring towns. If, as the board found in December of 2019 in your resolution that led to tonight, that there are 1,740 users of the Heritage System, a $240 a year per user fee drains over $400,000 a year from the community every single year. And during these times, if you think $240 a year doesn't sound like much, talk to somebody that just lost their job. There's no reason for that double taxation. It's not fair and it's not reasonable, and you are completely empowered to pass a simple resolution telling the county to take it over. And nobody could sue you over that because you have the statutory power to do it. It says it right in Section 120 of the Transportation Corporation Law, and it's not going to cost you anything either. And frankly, the county will have to decide when they look at all of this information, but I'm quite confident they'll decide that they can't violate the law and allow somebody to depreciate for more than 30 years. So they'll get it for zero. When you act in the public interest and you see this picture, it's very simple what you have to do for the people. Public ownership is the destiny of this system, always has been, and it's time to do it. Thank you.
sir.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'll try not to be repetitious and as brief as possible. But it's our belief that the town did make a mistake in the record by establishing a rate based upon an alleged investment of $1,114,000 at the 2012 rate hearing, which was the last rate hearing 8 years ago. This is a new rate hearing, and the town needs to start at zero and establish the investment to base the new rate on. I would like to respond tonight to the continuous mantra of the town board and the town attorney that, quote, someone had to build a line. The answer is a resounding yes, somebody did build a line. It just wasn't Heritage Springs Sewer Works. As evidenced by the report of the CPA, there was no investment, no depreciation, and based on the tax returns of Heritage Springs Sewer Works, an asset value of less than $15,000 in any given year. There are 3 major components to the sewer infrastructure that the town, you guys, state that Heritage Springs constructed at a cost of approximately $1,114,000. However, as clearly demonstrated, there is no evidence of this investment by Heritage. Rather, it is a number based upon a fabricated estimation agreed to by the town. This so-called investment is the basis of the connection rate of $2,000. The town approved with absolutely no evidence of cost, not a single receipt for any piece of pipe, nothing. That just doesn't seem possible, since we've been told all along how well run Heritage Springs is. The 3 major components of the system are the Deer Run line, Caterhouse Estates line, and the Route 50 crossing improvement. Deer Run line was constructed by shareholders of Deer Run Management, Inc. Prior to the formation of Heritage Springs Sewer Works. Deer Run line was paid for and apparently expensed by the shareholders of Deer Run Management, Inc., again, prior to the formation of Heritage Springs Sewer Works. It would be impossible for Heritage Springs to incur debt from another corporation since it was paid for and expensed by Deer Run Management, Inc. Thus, there could be no depreciable assets contributed to Heritage Springs Sewer Works. Second major component was built by Jim Mitchell personally to facilitate his land deal, KRS Estates, which was just demonstrated by my brother Tom. The fabricated estimate for the cost of this line is approximately $300,000. The notable fact is Mr. Mitchell constructed this line personally, even though he was a shareholder and president of Heritage Springs Sewer Works. So why didn't Heritage Springs Sewer Works build the line? It's just another example of a developer building a sewer line and contributing that sewer line to Heritage Springs at no cost. The reality is Mr. Mitchell could build a sewer line, pay for it, and expense the cost of the sewer line against the profit from the KRS Estates development, and thereby reduce his capital gain tax burden. Again, there is no way this component of the sewer system can be considered as part of the connection rate because the Heritage Springs has no investment, as it was given to him at no cost. This is actually according to Mr. Mitchell's sworn testimony. The final component of the fabricated estimate the town used to establish a connection rate is the Route 50 crossing. The estimated cost for this improvement you got to understand, this was an improvement to the Saratoga County Sewer District line. It was paid for by environmental design partners for the express purpose of facilitating the construction of 700 apartments, now known as Winner's Circle. And the cost of it was approximately $114,000. The town cannot include an improvement to the county sewer system by a private company to facilitate a private development as part of a public rate structure. The end result of the town not addressing Heritage Springs in the proper fashion and the residents here tonight, and there are some of them on that system, your constituents end up paying thousands of dollars for a service they already pay Saratoga County to provide. The second point regarding fairness of the rate deals with KVA apartments, now known as Winner's Circle. This development, and we all know where it is, contains approximately 700 units, maybe more or less. I'm using an even number. According to Saratoga County Sewer District Number 1 regulations, one apartment equals one unit or one ERU. According to Heritage Springs Sewer Works contract with KVA, it states that KVA will pay $1,500 per ERU. And you're right, we're not going to mess with that contract. It says $1,500 per ERU. But to date, there is no evidence this has been paid. It's simple math, folks. 700 times 1,500 is $1,050,000. There's no record of that in any of the voluminous reports Mr. Walsh referred to earlier. The board needs to address this issue and demand this amount be paid according to the town's resolution and correct this inequity. The bottom line, once again, is it appears the public is subsidizing private development through payment of sewer fees. In this particular case, the owner of KVA Apartments and the owner of the sewer system appear to be the same individual. And according to the annual reports of Heritage Springs Sewer Works, the amount has not been collected. Finally, there was one last question I need the board to answer. On August 28th, 2008, Jim Mitchell sent an email to the town engineer in which he stated the following, and I'll quote directly from his email. In our case, meaning Heritage Springs Sewer Works, we have no capitalization. We are not taking depreciation or including depreciation as a rate component. We are not entitled to or requesting a return on investment in our rate structure, and we are not using public funds. Let me read that again, just so it sinks in. We are not entitled to or requesting a return on investment. My question is simple. Since Mr. Mitchell, a principal of Heritage, stated he had no investment and wasn't entitled to a return, those are his words, not mine. Why did the town, with no documentary evidence, decide he made an investment and he was entitled to a 7% return on that investment? Or in other words, by what authority did the town completely contradict the statement of Heritage Springs and Jim Mitchell? You need to think about that. You have the president of the sewer company telling you we have no investment, and we're not entitled to a return. How did that happen? How could it possibly happen? Lastly, and this hasn't been brought up, the Heritage, and I guess they're going to regurgitate Mr. Coughlin's report that they have $1,114,000 of investment. That's what they've represented to the town. Is that correct? Everybody understands that? $1,114,000. That's what they say their asset is worth. However, and that was approved, I think, Jim, in the 2011 resolution, if I'm correct. Their 2010 tax return, which you have a copy of, states total assets of the company, $1,250. My question, I guess it's going to be my second question, is, are they misrepresenting the facts to you, or are they misrepresenting the facts to the IRS? You can't say we have $1 million assets, and then on your tax return you have $1,250. Because if they're misrepresenting to these guys, there's serious penalties and potential jail time. I don't know what the problem is if they misrepresent to you. And it needs to be looked into, it needs to be taken care of. You have your constituents paying an aggregate of over $400,000 a year. Those are the people you want to vote for you. Why would you continue making them pay twice for the same service? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Anyone else like to speak tonight?
Good evening, Carrie Jackson, 924 MacArthur Drive. To the board, this town is no longer a population of 500 to 1,000 people who all know each other and have their hands in each other's pockets. You have a large population who voted you into office to do the right thing. This all, once again, as I've said to you before, comes back to trust. And I didn't have anything planned to say tonight, just so you know. And as an aside, I do wish you could see me outside of this, because I am a nice, friendly person who smiles and laughs. So unfortunately, when I see that I am being treated wrong and my neighbors are being treated wrong, or that I am being, what's the nice word I used, taken advantage of or ripped off, I get angry. So I just want to put that out there. So this all comes back to trust, and you can end this, and I ask that you do. To Mr. Walsh, that you don't have paperwork and documents ready tonight after months and months and months of all this going on is ridiculous. You said, and I quote, nothing has changed. Exactly. That is exactly right. Since 2011, 2012, there is no reason for that. Nothing has changed, and things should be changed so that the constituents are not being double billed. If it is such a difficult operation for your clients to run, as you said, a lot of work goes into it, then I suggest that they hand it over to the county and relieve themselves of that responsibility. Threats to raise connection rates and yearly rates is wrong. I don't know how you sleep at night saying that. And if they can afford to have you speak in front of them, I'm someone that lives in this town. I'm a teacher. My husband works for the post office. He also is in the Army Reserves, and he delivers papers. We're trying to save money so our 2 kids can go to college. And for you to sit here and say that they're not making any money, but yet they can send you here to represent them, to me, tells me that they have a few dollars in their pocket. I'm talking on behalf of all of my neighbors and all of those people who pay an extra $250 a year. And I will tell you that my neighbor and friend, Bridget Herbst, called the county and spoke with them, and they did say that it would be about $50 that they may have to adjust their rate. for the people who are being charged $250 a year. So you would be saving us money by getting rid of this. I ask that you please do. Thank you.
What was your resident? 924 MacArthur. Boston Park. Karen. C-A-R-R-I-E. Yep, last name.
Anyone else? I would really prefer this does not get to a he said type of situation here, so.
I will keep it very brief.
And
It is in the nature of rebuttal, but I just want to make a few points here that the Bogosians, in spite of their artfully pleaded case, it should be remembered that they sued the town as a result of the 2011 resolution. They chose to settle that case and be a party to the stipulation of settlement with the town and with the sewer company. All of these issues addressed by their CPA, by Bruce, by Mr. Privatera, were all fully argued every which way to Sunday in the prior litigation and in the 2010 hearings in connection with the Robinson report and in the litigation. And it should be noted that the Robinson report and the 2011 resolution specifically addresses these issues, and it talks about the capital investment having been made by the Heritage Springs Sewer Works or its principals. This whole argument of who paid.
Really what I wanted to address was the cost, per 1,000 gallons of water. But understanding the other comments and really what's happened in the past, I think that it's important to try to turn this over to the city or to the county instead of having it continue to run through the program. That's all.
thank you, sir. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing, and when we get information in from everybody, and then the board has a chance to review it, and our engineer has a chance to review it, we will come back with questions, and we will schedule another public hearing for a determination on this procedure. Moving on, I have a letter from a resident requesting a speed reduction on White Road. Children may concern, the residents of White Road are requesting that the town authorize Saratoga County to do a traffic study to reduce the speed limit on White Road. There was an accident on 7/7/20. I helped to direct traffic till help came. When an ambulance arrived to help the man, I was told having traffic turn around. I was on a yellow line waving to cars to slow down, turn around, and the car keeps going, lays a horn at me. You can see behind me an ambulance in the middle of the road. Clear ignorance. A lot of vehicles do not follow speed limit, like to come up the hill, speed down, and people like to accelerate around the turn where accidents happen. A lot of my neighbors have concerns over this. I've had animals hit. I do not let my kids go for walks. Neighbors are not walking as much because of this. My neighbor doesn't like to get her mail. I've lived here all my life. We all watch out for each other. I understand the burden of law enforcement. I know I'm not the only one that calls the sheriff to patrol. We appreciate your consideration in this matter. If the town or county needs anything further, my neighbors and I will get this matter taken into consideration. Sincerely, Giovanna, no last name. Oh, Kerwin, I guess it would be Kerwin. Brenda, please forward this to the town board to be put on the 7/22 agenda. Thanks. Jason, what is White Road a town road or a county road? Okay. Okay, then
It has to go to them.
has to go to the county anyway, right?
Well, they say that.
Yep. Okay. That's all right. Monthly reports. Animal control. For the month of June, 68 phone calls, 4 dog bites, 3 lost dogs, 4 animals taken to the shelter, 5 DOAs, 10 miscellaneous cases, 19 delinquent licenses, and 5 miscellaneous violations and summons. Respectfully yours, Arsene Palmier. The building department. Just to speed things up, I'm going to read these off for everybody. During the month of June, the building department processed 40 building permits and collected $6,920.80 in building permit fees. We completed 175 construction inspections and responded to 27 code enforcement complaints. A total of 30 permits were closed with 13 certificates of occupancy and 17 certificates of compliance being issued. Respectfully submitted, William Lewis. Historians. This is from Karen Stalters. I've been working on one research request from best I can at home, as Town Hall has most of my resources. Historic Structures and Places Committee. Met on July 16th at the community center with masks and social distancing. It was decided that by the group that we would try to present this year's Heritage Award via Zoom at the town board meeting on September 23rd. Jim Richmond informed us that the 1780 raid on Middle Line Road was planned for October. We'll have a virtual tour of the area during the same week it was planned for, instead of the actual raid due to the COVID crisis. The group has also decided to try to finish our cemetery cleaning at Grinnell Cemetery on September 12th, as long as conditions are good. As a way to keep kids involved with history, Brookside has had local historians provide short articles for their website. These articles were also printed in the local Penny Saver newspaper. I wrote one article and another one on the Boston Terminal Railroad that we printed in the first week of August. As this pandemic is of historic proportions, I have been reporting daily numbers from New York State, Saratoga County, Town of Milton, and the Village of Boston Spa. I have collected newspaper articles to chronicle this event in our history and the effect that it has had on our community. I have also been journaling and taking pictures around town as a way to record this locally. And I have also been chronicling the reopening process as well. Respectfully submitted, Karen Stalters, Town Historian. The registrar's report for the month of June: 13 marriages, 7 marriage certificates, 50 death certificates, 9 FOIL and search of record requests, 178 dog licenses. Total brought in was $4,084. The town share was $3,210.10. Respectfully submitted, Brenda Howell. Town Court for the month of June: 29 charges received, 19 disposed, 54 vehicle, I believe, VTL, is that what that is?
Yes.
Okay, and 43 charges disposed. 2 civil cases were received and 2 were disposed. Fines collected were $1,453. Surcharges were $1,858. Civil fees were $1,200 for a total of $4,511. Frank, I believe you have the report from Buildings and Grounds. Need the microphone, Frank.
All right. Buildings and Grounds, our top priority has been and continues to be to combat COVID-19 and ensure that the town's facility is clean, sanitized, and available to meet this objective. We have made a number of repairs to the water systems for the Suzanne Lynn, Lynn Park, and also for Burgess Kimball Park. We continue to mow and keep clean various areas around the town park. A well done, and a big thank you to Cameron Fitzpatrick, who coordinated and and a project to replace the fence along the Wood Road Red Trail that has been frequently used by sledders during the winter months. This project began August of 2019, and through persistence and desire was able to be completed at the August of this year. It was finished up in July 11th with the help of fellow scouts, friends, and family on June 11th. It's worth a walk over to the trail to check out this new fence. Thank you, Cameron. Respectfully submitted, Mark Van Asdale.
Thank you, Frank. We have liaison reports. I think, Frank, you just gave your buildings and grounds report. John, you have anything from Highway?
Just that they've been doing the same stuff they've done.
Highway has been doing the same things they've been working on. Their basins, some road aprons, and, basically all the summer maintenance stuff. Been working under some pretty hot days.
Thank you. Ryan, I think I stole your thunder with this.
Sorry, we have those letters we want to show you.
Councilwoman Kerr, Planning and Zoning.
Planning and Zoning Board on June 25th. There were 2 items on the agenda. There was a public hearing for Country Club Drive. There were 2 lots they wanted to bring together. That was extended until tomorrow night. And there was also a public hearing for 8 Oakwood Court. There was a 50-foot variance to install a garage closer to the Oakwood Cemetery, and that was approved. And for the planning board, from Wednesday, July 15th, there was a public hearing for the Belmonte project, 804 Middle Line Road. That was approved for a home business. There was also a minor subdivision, Rhodes Family Subdivision on Dewar Road, Dewar and Lewis. That was approved, and the public hearing for the Rollins Street major subdivision, the public hearing was left open. More information was coming in on that. That concludes it for this month.
Do we have anything under old business? Okay. Under new business, I have a resolution to allow a basketball camp at Town Park. Whereas Steve D'Agostino, owner and professional basketball trainer of the Dags Basketball Inc., has requested the town board consent and authorization to allow him to use the basketball courts to conduct a basketball camp at the town park for 4 weeks commencing on July 6, 2020. And whereas the town board would require proof of liability insurance and proposed outdoor safety procedures and guidelines that are to be followed before the students enter the basketball camp. And whereas Dags Basketball Inc. would pay a weekly rental for the use of the basketball courts, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Milton does hereby authorize Dags Basketball Inc. to rent the basketball courts at Burgess Kimball Town Park for the purpose of holding a basketball camp for the weeks from July 6th until July 27th with a weekly rental of $100 per week. And be it further resolved that Dags Basketball must at all times have in place a certificate of liability insurance ensuring the town against all liabilities associated with any use of the town property, COVID outdoor guidelines and safety procedures acceptable to the town, as well as indemnify and hold harmless the town, its officers, officials, and employees from any and all liability associated with their use and use by their students, invitees, and guests of the park for the basketball camp. Now therefore be resolved by the town board of the town of Milton. So I'll need a motion for resolution number 42.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I got it. I'll turn it up, so make sure you talk.
Just a couple of questions, I guess. I know Ryan had looked at the area around there and had some concerns about things that needed to be repaired. Do we know that those have been done so kids don't get into?
The court that the basketball camp is using is all the way to the, there's the far court, and it's in usable condition. One of the tennis courts is not, but we don't have any lit up there.
And what about the bathrooms? Are they?
The bathrooms are usable.
Okay.
And the camp he's having, well, you all have the emails on it. He's 4 to 5 kids at a time. They're all using their own basketballs, their own water bottles. Camp ends, one session ends before another session's even coming in. So I think they're doing a decent job trying to avoid their contacts and stuff. And they have 10 more days to go as it is. Yep.
Councilman Blaisdell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Carter.
Yes.
Councilman Froelich.
Yes.
Councilman Isakson.
Yes.
Supervisor Zalati.
Yes. Okay, next up is public comment. If anybody has anything, I do have someone who asked a question about an hour and a half ago, so I'm going to get to it now. It's from Tony Licata. It says, what is the status on the town hall mold problem? Tony, I hope you're still here. Oh, I can see that he is. So, and John, you want to take that for us?
Basically, the status right now is that we've contracted with MJ Design for engineering and studies for the town hall, which are necessary for building specs and different things if we have to bond. The initial report should be done hopefully next week. The environmental report will be done. That will tell us whether we have asbestos or anything else in the hall. And once that's done, and they do a couple other things as far as looking at space needs and things like that, we should be able to make a decision. And then really the next step would be to look at bonding, and also at the same time maybe have them start preparing drawings. So that's about where we're at with it.
Thank you, John. Anybody else? Shannon?
Shannon Doherty, Rock City Road. I have a question. I put in for a FOIL in regards to all the expenditures since January 1. Can you tell me on 327 invoice number 0115-2020, who was paid $5,000 and what was it for?
When was this FOIL request put in, Shannon?
I have my FOIL. The question is, what was it for, that money? What was that $5,000? There's no explanation.
Off the top of my head, I can't give you an answer.
Give us the numbers again.
The invoice number is 0115-2020, and it was done on 327. My next question is, are you still planning on vacating this building by September 1st so that the seniors can come back?
We had a meeting with the seniors today. And I will be meeting with Linda Elmer, the president of the seniors, in the next couple days to try to formalize a plan.
Okay, and my third question, are your agendas going to be up prior to the day before the meeting?
Yes, they will be.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none and seeing none on Zoom?
You have a question?
Oh, sorry about that. Frank Rossi wants to know, where does the 2020 sales tax revenue stand year over year as of the last payment by the county? Based on the information that we got yesterday, for the year the town is up about $2,077 over last year. There was a word of caution also from the county supervisor, county treasurer, that our payment for July, which would have been for May, was a little bit higher than expected because the governor allowed businesses to take some extra time to pay their sales tax, but it was due in this last quarter, so that's part of the reason for the higher return than we were expecting. He's also kind of warned us that July and August, which we won't see until September or October, are really expected to be down just because the track is not open, SPAC's not open. Summertime, people are not spending the money. They don't believe anyway that people will be spending the money way that they would have been spending. So, anyone else? And another one. What is our normal monthly amount? Well, that varies from month to month, Mr. Rossi. This month was $400,000, like we said, but it was up because of those extra payments. Our sales tax revenue is expected to be usually in the, what is it usually? Yeah, I mean, we don't really have an average normal month there, Frank. It's up and down depending on how we were way up heading into January and February because people spent a ton of money last year in November, December. And then February was down because people don't shop like they usually do after Christmas. So we don't, it's not a fixed amount. I will put that together, information together. Mr. Rossi, I think you know this is supposed to be public comment, not a question and answer period. If you want to stop in tomorrow or give me a call, I can go over these questions with you. Thanks. Anybody else? Seeing none, motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion. Second.
All in favor?
Any objections?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.